Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's IEEE-USA webinar, Who Defines Your Success? Hint, it should be you. I'm your host, Jonathan Cho. Our presenter for today is 2026 IEEE President-elect Jill Gostin. Jill is a Principal Research Scientist Emeritus at the Georgia Tech Research Institute, where her work focused on sensor systems and software. She's also served as a Systems Engineering, Integration, and Test Lead in the Software Engineering and Architecture Division. Her publications, service and technical awards, large program management, and leadership of groups including industry, government, and academia have contributed to her career success. She has served IEEE extensively, including 3 years on the IEEE Board of Directors, as 2023 IEEE Vice President of Member Geographic Activities, and 2020 to 2021 Region 3 Director. She is a former chair of the IEEE Atlanta section and the IEEE Computer Society's Atlanta chapter. Jill served on the IEEE Computer and IEEE Aerospace and Electronic Systems Society's boards of governors and was the vice president of finance for the Sensor Council's executive committee. She's also led or been a member of several IEEE organizational units and committees locally and globally. Her leadership has been recognized by being named 2016 Woman of the Year by Georgia Women in Technology and receiving the 2025 IEEE Women in Technology and Leadership Award. Without further ado, I will now pass it out to our presenter. Welcome, Jill. We're very excited to hear what you have in store for our audience today.
Thank you, Jonathan. It's great to be here with all of you today at this IEEE-USA webinar. Welcome and thank you for attending. You've already heard a bit about me from what Jonathan just shared, but you're going to hear some more details about my life and career during this talk today as I use those as some examples about how to achieve success, how to define what success means to you. I started giving talks about planning for your own success when I reached a turning point in my own mindset and in my own career. Jonathan mentioned I won a significant award in 2016, the Woman in Technology Woman of the Year Award for the state of Georgia. And winning that award made me realize that it was time for me to focus not on my own career, but on helping others with their careers. And that's now behind pretty much everything I do, including within IEEE. I try to help others with career plans, with identifying and making use of opportunities, with dealing with issues, and with celebrating their successes. But as you'll see in a few minutes, even after 2016, when I had that turning point, I faced some serious challenges in reaching my own version of success. I think my focus on helping others, though, also helped me in getting through my own challenges. Next slide, please. Throughout your career, you'll have personal changes, professional changes, and even external changes that may be fully outside of your control. No path through life is linear. Today, I want to help you navigate that path through all of those changes. I want you to know that you're not alone, that others have similar stories, and that you can always find something positive within the challenges you face if you have a growth mindset. I want to help you be prepared for the inevitable challenges and changes you'll face by creating your own roadmap based on your goals and by building a support team to help you be successful. Next slide, please. So this looks kind of like a funny little chart here of what people think success will look like, what it actually looks like. But I want you to think of your career as a long, winding journey with varying terrain and maybe even some roadblocks or detours along the way. Some of those unexpected changes may actually bring a new adventure, or they may be a real challenge that you have to deal with. You may need to actually backtrack at some point. What path you choose and how you navigate through it says a lot about you. Things like your confidence level at that time, your very nature, your resilience and your passion, and your ambition. Next slide, please. This is actually one of my favorite photos. It's of my son, used with his permission. I asked him first and told him what I was going to use it for. But this photo is a great illustration to me of what I'm going to be talking about today. When he's facing a rock wall, he starts with a plan, and sometimes this happens even well before he gets to that rock wall. He looks at how others have climbed it. What are some lessons learned they had? He gets to the rock wall and he stands there and looks up at it and studies it and thinks about, okay, what is the path I'm going to take to get to the top? But then as he starts climbing, at every point he is reassessing his next handhold. So each step he reassesses and he focuses on that very next move. So he prepared ahead of time and he had a plan, but he also stays flexible so that when an unexpected challenge or an opportunity presents itself, he can take advantage of it. We have to be like that with our careers. Take it one step at a time and reassess your path at every step, maybe even reassess your ultimate goal as you go. Next slide, please. So, just a bit about me. The black and white photo is from 1985 on my very first day of work at the Georgia Tech Research Institute. I'll call it GTRI from now on. The lower left photo is my official IEEE President-elect portrait that will stay with me for the next 3 years. It was taken last October or November, I think, but that was not long after I retired after 40 years at GTRI. So you see my first day of work, and not too long after my last day of work. You can also see here my two kids when they were very young, and I had changed to only part-time work for 12 years, and then a picture of them as adults. They're both adults now living on their own. The bottom center picture is from Sections Congress in 2023 when I was IEEE Vice President for MGA. And the bottom right shows 2025 President Kathleen Kramer, 2026 President Mary Ellen Randall, and I will be president in 2027. So the first time that three women presidents are sequential. And in fact, we are numbers 5, 6, and 7 as far as women presidents in IEEE. My family and IEEE are among the key things that have impacted my journey to where I am and who I am today. That's why I'm showing you these pictures. I used to think that my journey was unusual, significantly outside the norm, especially with my 12 years of only occasionally working part-time in my field and then returning to work after that long gap. But it's not. I've talked with many people around the world sharing stories about our career journeys, among other things. And through all of those conversations, those shared stories, I've seen that almost everyone has a story to share about something that significantly impacted their planned career path in totally unexpected or unusual ways. Next slide, please. So this top graph here is my notional graph of my perception of my career path. And so the y-axis is really my perception of how I'm doing towards my goals. And you can see overall it's advancing. And it's also year by year data points. If you looked at this month by month, this would be a very, very jagged plot because things change drastically on a month by month basis. But this is year by year. And so then what I also did, I divided my career path into 3 stages that you can see at the bottom. So the first stage was really the first 10 years, my early career. I was full-time. Georgia Tech at GTRI, we have 4 different ranks. During those first 10 years, I was in rank 1 and 2, and I worked in the radar and instrumentation lab. Lab at GTRI means a focus area. Then I had 12 years of part-time work when I was a stay-at-home mom, and that was a very small amount of work. At most, I ever worked 10 hours a week, and I would sometimes go a year or 2 without working at all, but I was still listed as part-time. And then I'll talk about the final stage of my career. I'm actually going to divide that into 2 segments because there was, as you can see, some significant changes in my perception of how I was doing at that time. So I'll divide that up. But I came back in as a rank 3 and then ended up rank 4 principal research scientist. And in that stage, I worked at both the radar and instrumentation lab and then at the information and communications lab, and then ended up going back into the radar and instrumentation lab. I'm going to talk more about these stages of my career over the next few slides. So let's go to the next slide. So first I'll talk about my early career. On all of these slides, these next ones about these different segments of my journey, you'll see on the left some of the challenges I faced, and on the right you'll see a list of the characteristics that I felt I needed in order to be successful. and I'll have bolded the ones that I believe I did display during that part of my career. Later on in the talk, we'll talk about creating your own list of traits that you need for success. At this this point in my journey, which was the part one of my journey, I was an IEEE member, but I wasn't an active volunteer. During these years, I was actually quite successful in my technical and career growth. I won awards and I was selected to participate in some special programs at work. I developed a new method for helping with what was then a challenge for radar systems. And I won a best paper award at a conference, and the paper was then published in one of our IEEE magazines, the AESS magazine. I wrote and won multiple proposals, winning funding, and then I managed those programs. And I also served in multiple roles as a principal investigator. But I also faced many challenges, and you can see these challenges on the left side of the screen. There were not many females in my field. I didn't have mentors to look up or examples to watch. I had a sexist remark made to me early on in my career. In fact, it was before my first ever presentation at a major radar conference. I was doing a dry run with some of my leadership, all male leadership. And one of them actually said at one point that it really didn't matter what I said because I could always just unbutton a couple of buttons of my shirt and no one would care what I said. So that was a significant impact on my confidence, and I had to really work through that. I also had a great mentor, but then when I was ready to move out from under my mentor's wings, I had a bit of a trouble with that. They didn't think I was ready, they didn't believe I was ready, and wanted to keep me there. And so I really had to push to say, no, I'm ready to move on. But also during this time, I did exhibit a lot of these, or several of these characteristics that I listed that I needed for success. And they're the ones that are bolded here. So I demonstrated drive and passion. I learned and applied knowledge. I had a positive attitude through most of this. And I was a very organized person at this point. Next slide, please. So this is the point where I then stepped away from full-time work to concentrate on raising my kids. So after 10 years full-time, I stepped away. And so when I first announced that I was going to be stepping away, one of the things said to me was that I would be wasting my education. I fully disagree with that. You don't ever waste education. Education is always worthwhile. And I did use that for those first 10 years, and I didn't know what was going to be happening in the future with that. But, that was something that was said to me that has stuck with me for a long time, that someone viewed me that way. I had financial concerns about moving away from work and moving to a one-income family. And then as time went by over these 12 years, even though I was doing a small amount of work off and on, the thought of re-entering the technical workforce was daunting. I didn't feel like I would really be able to. But also during this time, I raised two great kids. I did extensive volunteer work in my community through my church, scouting, other events, all while continuing a very low level of part-time work. And that actually served to keep my name known at GTRI. But for most of these years, I wasn't really expecting to ever return to full-time work. I thought I might return to more part-time work, but I really didn't expect to return to full-time work. And so here again, you can see the things that I demonstrated during this time, and I added bold here. I was stepping out of my comfort zone in many of these areas. Next slide, please. So then we come to an unexpected turn of events, an unexpected part of my journey, which in this case was a divorce. And because of that divorce, I needed to return to full-time work somewhere. I had low self-confidence, and due to that, I actually considered and began seeking some non-research options of jobs, but then was strongly encouraged by my friends and family, my support team, to also approach GTRI about going back there full time. So eventually I did apply and I was hired back at GTRI in 2007, but I faced several challenges after being hired. There were still very few females, so not many role models again. I didn't have confidence in myself, and I even doubted my own credibility in my field. And when I talked about moving into leadership and management roles, which I had found during my volunteer work that I was very good at that and I really loved doing that, I met a lot of resistance. I was already out of all succession plans because of my being gone for 12 years. And I was told over and over again that I wouldn't like management and leadership roles, and that my technical work was really my true strength. So I should just continue what I was doing. So after a few years of repeatedly asking for opportunities and not getting them, I ended up actually applying for another job within GTRI in 2014 in another lab, another focus area, which was a management position, deputy director of that lab, the Information and Communications Lab. That position was really three levels up, three management levels up from where I was when I applied. I had to go through several interviews, and then I was selected for that position. And that selection was based partly on my volunteer experience. During my interviews and in my resume, I talked about the professional skills I had developed and demonstrated through my volunteer work. And I showed them that I had deep leadership experience already through those positions. And then, so during these years, I believe I demonstrated all of these listed characteristics, except the last one, true resilience. There were some signs of resilience, but it wasn't really what I would say a strong resilience characteristic built yet. So then what happened in late 2018, some big changes happened that really tested me due to a challenging personnel issue that was going on. Me, my boss, and his boss were all moved into different positions at GTRI to essentially get us out of the line of fire and to supposedly stop the problem that was happening. Really didn't work that way, but that's a long story and something I really can't talk about and don't have the time to talk about here. But I was caught by surprise by this move, and I was so disappointed because I had really loved what I was doing. But the good thing was that the reputation I had built over the years played a big role in me getting into a different position that I would eventually realize was another great role where I could grow and also make an impact. Next slide, please. That move that I was forced to make was really a tough time for me. I felt as if I had been misled and mistreated. My self confidence took a big hit. And I considered at the time looking into changing jobs. I looked for other positions. I began that search. I submitted a few resumes, but ultimately I turned back to IEEE and I used my IEEE roles, volunteer roles again, but this time in a bit of a different way. I used them to help rebuild my self confidence, my confidence that I was a good leader, that I could manage groups, that I was capable of doing more than what I had been changed to. So that had another benefit also. It not only helped me with my self-confidence, it also helped me move up into higher levels at IEEE, helping me to get where I am today. I also during this time slowly began to remember what I loved about GTRI, that I loved the impact that GTRI makes, and I loved the passion and the expertise of the people I was working with. That, along with the fact that I thought I might probably retire within the next 4 or 5 years, made me just decide to stay at GTRI. I ended up spending a lot of my time during these years helping programs and people that were struggling for one reason or another. For example, I was asked to step in to lead a program for a particularly challenging sponsor. I brought project directors together who are managing similar technical programs to share best practices and resources and work through struggles together. I felt at times like a fixer of sorts, and I really relished that role. I actually ended up staying 7 years, and during this time, maybe around year 3, I believe that I had finally demonstrated all of my success characteristics to a good level, including being resilient, but of course, there was always room to improve on each of those characteristics as time went on. Next slide, please. Everyone will face challenges along their career path, and I've got some examples here. Think about the number of challenges that have impacted you in some way, whether directly or because maybe it impacted a family member or someone who worked for you. There's a lot of challenges out there. Some of these challenges are specific to women, but many challenges impact both women and men. And these challenges can be things like changes that are internal or external to your company, family responsibilities related to children, parents, siblings, a limited number of mentors that are available, like I had throughout my career with not a lot of female mentors to turn to, new leadership coming in, or maybe your company even being sold. Imposter syndrome is something we're all familiar with, and many people have experienced it. Then there's things that we are very much aware of, the wage gap, gender and other biases. Also, being interrupted. That is something that happens much more often to women than to men. And there's studies that show that even on the Supreme Court of the US, the women are interrupted way more often than the men are. Or maybe not even being taken seriously. You speak up and people ignore you or speak over you. There are so many other things we could add to. There's many general types of challenges we can face. Next slide, please. In addition to, or sometimes maybe because of those challenges, we sometimes have total interruptions of our career due to things like maternity or paternity leave, maybe a health issue for you or a family member. Maybe you're burnt out and you need to take a break. Sometimes taking time off, maybe for further education, for volunteering and humanitarian efforts, or for travel. That's prevalent among some of our young professionals these days. Also, taking time off to explore maybe an entrepreneurship opportunity. All of these things are just part of life, and they can all interrupt our career plans. I read that in the US, 68% of workers have had a gap in their employment of multiple months or even multiple years. Mine was really 12 years. There was some small part time work in there at different times during those 12 years, but for the most part, it was really a significant gap. Here you can see just some of the challenges on the right of trying to return after a gap. You may not be up to date with technologies or behind on the latest news in your field. Your work environment may have changed significantly. Maybe you don't know all the latest, greatest tools. For me, returning, one of the things I experienced was the terminology had all changed. The words that were being used to describe things 12 years before had changed to something different. So I had to learn a new terminology. Your people connections may have fallen to the wayside, and your resume may be outdated, and your confidence may be very low. I actually gave a previous IEEE USA webinar on this, on returning to work after a gap, that went into the details about how to deal with these things. So you can find that online if you want more information. Next slide, please. Whether you're facing a challenge or maybe an upcoming gap, or if you're returning from a gap, preparation is key, and starting to prepare as soon as possible is also important. So create a plan and a timeline, keep up with contacts or maybe make new ones, and reach out to them for any assistance that you need. Make sure you're always staying current in your field. Even if you're gone, even if something is going on that depletes your confidence, make sure you're keeping up and keeping current. Think about and update your career goals, both short term and long term. Join a professional society relevant to your work and attend those meetings so you can make connections. Keep track of your skills that you are building so you can use them on your resume, and then also track your progress toward your goals. This is something that a lot of people don't do, and I'll talk a little bit more about this, but it's important to track the things that you are doing. And I'll also include here, write a value statement. It's a short description of what your values are that guide your actions, your decisions, your behaviors, and this will help you better understand yourself. All of these things together will help you build a strong foundation to help you when you face a challenge or a gap. Next slide, please. Being successful always requires support. So you need to leverage people and resources to help you face challenges, to celebrate the wins you have. That's something we often overlook for ourselves, and we don't celebrate when we have done something successful and something worthy of celebration. And it will help you reach your goals. This is what I call your support team. It's not just people, though, it's people and resources. Think about what kind of support you already have and what kind of support you need. You may not even be fully aware of the resources you turn to for particular types of help. It may just be a habit that you go to this particular resource or you go to this particular person. So think about who those resources are and what they are, and then think about what you're missing. If needed, ask someone that you know to help you find the kind of support that you need that you don't currently have. And all of these listed here, these are not just a pick one thing. You may need all of these. You may need one at one time for one challenge and another at a different time, or you may need the whole team to help you get through something. And there may be even other things that I haven't listed here that you can use for support. But your support team will help you be resilient. You can discuss successes and failures and challenges you're facing, maybe issues with interactions with your coworkers. And they can help you talk about next steps and determine what those should be. And they can help you find other people or resources that may be able to help you find things you need, like mentors, like training, like new tools. And make sure you have at least one person that you fully talk through your goals, so they understand what you're trying to do, and then talk about your progress and what your next steps are. Next slide, please. So next steps are important. It's important to focus on progress, not just on perfection and your end goals. This actually may require a change to your mindset, especially for perfectionists who really, want to be perfect in following their plan. Be resilient and reframe every challenge and setback as an opportunity for growth. And always focus on what you can learn from it, no matter what it is. I had a big challenge that was thrown in my lap, and it took me a while. I had an emotional reaction. I had to step back from that, and then start thinking about, okay, what can I learn from this? How can I, become even better? Refocus my goals, refocus my next steps. And these are some ways of reframing those setbacks. For example, if you aren't being given opportunities to lead, or seek some out, or if you see something that needs to be done, offer to take the lead. Don't let your words be ignored or shut down. Speak up for yourself. And if you see someone else being overspoken or ignored, speak up for them, help them. Listen to people's stories and share your own to learn from each other and to also make that connection with them. And remember to make use of all your skills, including those learned from being at home, from experiences you've had, or from volunteering. And in all cases, take the time to listen, then think before you speak, and then listen again. A lot of us start listening, an idea comes to our head, we stop listening so we can focus on what we're going to say, and then we say it. And then we don't listen to the follow-up. So we miss part of the beginning and we miss the follow-up to what we said. So we need to listen, think, speak, and then listen again. Next slide, please. Earlier, I showed you my list of characteristics or traits that I believed I needed for success. I now want to talk about how to come up with your own list. Everyone defines success differently, or at least I should say everyone needs to define success differently, because it should be based on your goals, where you are in your life, what your community is like, what your background is like, how you were raised. These are all differences that should impact how we are defining what success means to us. And because of these differences, everyone needs to come up with their own definition of success and a list of the characteristics that they personally need to build in order to meet their definition of success. And one thing we often forget is that we need to reassess it throughout our careers, because it will change based on things that happen. So, first, think about where you are in your life and your career at this moment and focus on your needs to get to the next step. And so, here for early career, you may need to focus on technical mastery and skill building. In mid career, it may change where you're focusing on leadership and on innovation. And then maybe later in your career, the focus needs to be on mentoring others, on balance, and on making an impact. Next slide, please. So, next, spend time thinking through and clarifying your goals. What is it you want to achieve in the long term? Also, think about what matters most to you right now and what really excites and energizes you. And through these, you'll be able to clarify the direction you need to take and identify your goals for success. And I have to say, this sounds like an easy thing to do. It sounds like a very simple, rapid process, but this is not. This takes a lot of reflection, a lot of understanding about where you've been, and a lot of understanding about where you want to go. So take the time to do this and really put in time to make sure that you have clarity for yourself. Next slide, please. Once you have your goals, I want you to think backwards to determine what key activities and challenges might be involved in reaching those goals. And one way to do that is to think about people you know that you feel are successful. What are they doing? What actions do you see them taking? How are they handling challenges? Once you've thought through some other people and how they're becoming successful in your own eyes, translate that into what characteristics that you will need to strive for to be successful yourself. And I want to give you a few examples about what I'm saying there because it's a little bit hard to do that translation if you don't fully understand what I'm saying. So, if you need to be great at dealing with certainty or change in order to be successful, the traits might be being adaptable and being patient because change requires patience. If you need to be a good collaborator, this might take great communication skills and maybe being bold if you are naturally shy or an introverted person. If being timely and responsive is important to your success, you need to be organized and disciplined. So, those are just a few examples that show you what I'm talking about there. But I hope you can see this overall process and how it works. Define what success looks like for you, clarify your vision and goals, and then identify the characteristics you need to build in yourself in order to reach your goals. And then don't just wait for opportunities to build these characteristics to drop in your lap. Actively seek out opportunities that will help you grow in those ways. And then don't forget to go through this process again every now and then because things change and you will need to reassess. Next slide, please. So this was the list of characteristics I showed you earlier, which I used as my success characteristics. So come up with your list using the process I just described. And then after you make your own list of these characteristics or traits, think about how you're doing on each one and what opportunities you can find to help build or improve those characteristics. Be prepared to change these as your skills, your goals, life, job, whatever changes. But no matter what, regularly track how you're doing and progressing towards success. Track it in a way that makes sense to you. Maybe it's a spreadsheet, maybe it's through some app or online tool that you use. Maybe it's in a notebook or on a piece of paper. Do whatever works for you that you know you will keep up with, that you will go back to, whether it's every 3 months, 6 months, every year to reassess. But keep it up in some way that you can maintain it and that is useful to you. And always remember to focus on your progress you're making, not on reaching perfection and reaching the ultimate goal, but what progress are you making? And celebrate each of those steps of progress that you make. Review on them, reflect on whether they've changed anything, and celebrate the step that you have made. So always keep this in mind, what I say here. It's not the summit that changes you, but the countless decisions made on the climb itself. And that's those countless decisions at each step. Next slide, please. In almost every talk I give about being successful, about leadership and management, and even about other things, I mention the importance of relationships, of being able to interact with others, and of sharing our stories with each other. It's easy for us to want to get down to the facts and the data and skip the stories behind it. But stories are what people remember, and stories are what bring us together and help us find commonalities, help us find things that we share. Your stories can also encourage and inspire others, and they also help others understand you better. They help you reflect back on what you've learned along the way. It brings things back to mind that maybe you've forgotten. And who knows, someone may point out something that you didn't even realize before. So you may learn something more about your story. Sharing your stories helps you build and demonstrate your human interaction skills. And I think of these as superpowers that will help you rise above those around you. These superpowers are achievable, they make collaboration smoother, and they help others see and understand your value. Next slide, please. STEM careers today are really a team sport. So those human interaction skills really come into play and are very important. The problems we're solving now, things like AI, the different quantum applications, energy, sustainability, security, all these things, they're too big for one person or one discipline. Complex problems like these require cross disciplinary teams. People help you learn faster than you can learn on your own. Opportunities often come about through relationships, and the union of diverse perspectives is what fuels innovation. So these connections really matter, especially today with the complex uh, problems that we face that require multidisciplinary interactions to be able to address them. Next slide, please. I think most of us hear networking and we immediately think of awkward small talk. But truthfully, successful people seek out transformational relationships, not just transactional ones. The depth and the quality of a relationship is much more important than the number of contacts you have. And in these relationships, look for ways to contribute, not just receive. It's all about sharing stories and giving and taking. So think of the long game and how deep relationships can really build and grow over time. Real networking isn't about the collection of business cards or about expanding your LinkedIn connections. It's about building meaningful relationships. Next slide, please. Mentors and sponsors are two very different roles, but both are very important, and it's a distinction that many people miss. You need both, and knowing who to ask for what makes a huge difference. Mentors provide insight and help you think through things. And sponsors are your champions and they help you advance. So when you're not in the room, they may go and talk to someone about the great things you can do and to consider you for a different position or a different role. So know what you want to ask from each, but always keep in mind that you need both relationships, mentor and sponsors, for your career momentum. Next slide, please. Another powerful way to grow and connect with others is through giving. Sharing your knowledge with others not only helps them, but it also deepens your own understanding and mastery of the subject to be able to help someone else learn about it. Supporting others through you being a mentor or a sponsor builds your leadership and communication skills and also gives you another connection to someone. Serving your community expands your perspective and helps you make an impact. Your generosity and your giving will be remembered and will reflect well on you. So when you help others, remember that it's also helping you. Next slide, please. IEEE provides you access to a global network and to activities you can join as a participant or a volunteer. You need to take advantage of those opportunities. And I'm not just talking about IEEE here. Whatever professional society you are involved in, you may be involved in multiple. Take advantage of the opportunities that are offered. Find the ones that suit you, but keep in mind that what suits you may change over time. There may be different things you want to do at different times in your life. But don't forget to regularly look for new opportunities because these are changing all the time. These bullets and these logos represent just a small sample of some of the ways that you can be more involved in IEEE. And don't forget that being involved as a volunteer can impact your professional skills. So when you have a volunteer role, don't forget to include the skills you have learned and demonstrated from that role on your resume and in interviews. Next slide, please. So IEEE has greatly impacted my life and my career in many ways. It has helped me develop my own community. What people that started out as colleagues became collaborators, and now many are lifelong friends. I have grown through my IEEE activities, through participating in conferences and publications, through my volunteer roles. I've gained new skills, and as I've said, skills that help me with my career and new perspectives. So these are things that helped me grow in many ways. And IEEE also gave me a way to make an impact through my volunteer roles, through STEM outreach. I was involved in the MOVE program. And so that was something that, especially later on in my career, I was really looking for ways to make an impact. And IEEE helped me with all of those things. So it's more than just a professional organization to me. It gave me my community, it gave me the resources for growth, and it gave me opportunities to make a meaningful impact in multiple different ways. Next slide, please. So I also wanted to mention here the IEEE Technology and Engineering Management Society, or TEMS. I am one of their distinguished lecturers, and I see great value in TEMS. While only some of us may go into full-time management positions, many of us have to have a deep knowledge of management for projects or for programs. So regardless of your technical field, TEMS can provide great value to you in those roles. TEMS is also deeply aligned with IEEE's mission, empowering professionals to create impact through technology and engineering management. The values you see here, growth, trust, partnership, integrity, community building, service, these are the same values that make strong professional relationships. And TEMS can provide you with resources to help you in your professional journey and to help you build those types of relationships. Next slide, please. And so I've included here a link if you're interested in participating in some TEMS conferences that will provide you with a global reach with global connections. Whether you're presenting, volunteering, or simply attending, these events are really powerful places to build your network and expand your visibility. And I think it's something that really is relevant to all of our members across IEEE. Next slide, please. So I'll close with some final thoughts here. Success isn't just about reaching a destination, it's about who you become along the way. Always remember to think about progress, those small steps you're taking, and celebrate them and learn from them. You take your step and then you reflect on the outcomes before you move forward to the next step. Because you may find that you need to make a change. Something may have happened in that step, and you may decide, okay, I need to change what my plans were, or change what I thought my next step was going to be. But progress should be your focus, not perfection. And if you face challenges along the way, I like this quote. Remember that difficult roads often lead to beautiful destinations. You may not see that right away. It may take a while, but you may eventually see that the destination was really worth those changes. None of these actions I've talked about today, defining and building your success plan and the characteristics you need to be successful, defining what those are and building them, building a support team, navigating challenges and unexpected changes throughout your career. None of these are earth shaking new ideas, and they aren't really particularly hard or all that time consuming. But many people don't ever do them, or they do them once and never go back and look at how they're doing against them, or refine them or change them to their current situation. But by following these actions I've proposed, you'll be more aware of what you are striving for, and you will be prepared for changes that come your way. And just like me, you may have a first emotional reaction. It may take you a while to get past that and start thinking about how this can help you. But when you settle into identifying what you have learned from this change and finding your next step or reassessing your path, that makes this all worthwhile. You'll have that ability to look back. You'll also be better able to support those coming up behind you, helping them with their paths. Your stress will be lower, and your progress will be accelerated and clearly visible. And you'll be a person that other people are looking to as an example that they want to follow. Next slide, please. So I want to thank you for your time today. I greatly appreciate being able to be here and you joining me. And I'm going to turn this back over to Jonathan now for some questions.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Jill. It was a great presentation, very inspiring. Folks, we are now at the Q&A portion of the webinar. Please post your questions in the comments and live chat section, and we'll load them onto the stream for Jill to answer. Jill, we did receive some questions during the presentation, so we'll just go ahead and ask them. I know some of these questions have probably been answered, but we'll go back and answer them again for the people who tuned in. Excuse me, tuned in late. First question our audience member asked in the beginning was, "How do you rebuild your confidence after an event that causes it to take a hit?"
Well, so for everybody, there is a time that you have to take for yourself for that reaction. There's a step back, allow that emotional response. But then you have to start thinking about, okay, I still have to move forward. You know, you still need to move forward. What do you need to do? And start thinking about what are next steps? How do I recover from this? How do I get back on a path? Do I need to redefine my path? But take that time to have your reaction and then start thinking about how you can grow from this. What lessons can you learn? And what is the next step? Again, this is a really good place for you to think not in terms of long term goals, but really in step by step progression. What is your next step? And maybe you take a small next step that then helps you and gives you time to redefine what your goals are. But you have to take it one step at a time and give yourself some time to fully recover. So even though when I went through a hit, it really did take me a few years to stop feeling some of that emotional reaction. But during that time, I was continuing to move forward to say, okay, what can I do given where I am? What are my next steps? And so I still continued with taking steps forward that I thought were going in the right direction and reassessing at each step. Um, but eventually I got to a point where I can look back now and I can see the growth opportunity that that presented to me. It still was not a great thing to go through. I'll never feel like it was a great thing to go through, but it
Right.
was something that I could recover from and learn from.
That's awesome. Thank you. And thank you to our audience member for the great question. This next question, our audience member asks, "How do you track goal progress when your goals are not necessarily tangible, e.g., becoming a good communicator?" Great question.
Yeah, so there's qualitative metrics and quantitative metrics. And so this may be something that is more qualitative, okay? So yes, I need to be a good communicator, but seek out opportunities to give presentations, to stand up in front of a group and talk about something, to speak up at a meeting. And write those things down if you need to, if you're not going to remember them. Say, I spoke up during this meeting. If you're having trouble putting yourself forward during a meeting, especially a big meeting with people that you feel are higher level or more deeply knowledgeable in your field, and yet you find the courage to speak up at that, give yourself credit for that. Give yourself credit for giving presentations, and maybe give yourself credit for getting through a presentation more easily than the last time you did it, or feeling more comfortable when you're responding to questions. Everybody at some point in their career, and maybe even still farther into their career, they get nervous about getting up and giving a presentation. Um, so finding your ways to get through those kind of things, keep track of that. So I think in any type of goal you have, there's going to be some way to note, maybe not specifically track, but to note the things you're doing towards making yourself more comfortable with that or more capable and able to do that.
It's really great feedback. Thank you. I feel like a big factor in these kinds of goals is a, a very or a big factor might be a confidence as well. So I feel like if you want to be good in anything, like one of the biggest steps in achieving that is having enough confidence. So maybe first asking yourself like, am I doing well in this or stuff like that, or just being able to like trusting yourself a bit more that you are progressing might be. I don't know if that makes sense, but building up your confidence may it go hand in hand with achieving those goals as well, is what the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah, and I think for some of these things, it may not necessarily be something that you do at work. For the example, communication skills. Maybe you do something in other groups, in some community involvement you have, and you can progress through that too, where you're still doing things that are about communicating or about whatever, the other goals are. They don't have to necessarily be at work. So track those things too. Maybe it's through your volunteer role. Track those things to show that you're working towards getting better at it, getting more comfortable at it.
Great answer. Thank you. And thank you to our audience member for your great question. This next question, our audience member Fatima, I hope I'm saying that correctly. I'm very interested in collaborating with IEEE and would like to become a volunteer. Could you please guide me on how to get this opportunity and how I can find a mentor? I think there's no better person to ask than Joe this question.
Becoming a volunteer at IEEE, there's multiple areas that you can volunteer in. So the first thing is to figure out what kind of volunteer you want to be. Do you want to be a volunteer in some of our technical societies? Do you want to be a volunteer in your local section or chapter? Do you want to be a volunteer at a conference? There's all different ways to be a volunteer, and there's all sorts of different ways to find volunteer opportunities. One good one is the volunteering platform. IEEE has a volunteering platform that you can go to and search for positions. There are a lot of positions listed there, and they give information about what exactly the volunteer role is. And it's constantly being updated with more positions. So that's one thing. Speaking with people that are in your local area, if you want to get involved locally, that's another good thing to do. Reaching out to people that are running a conference and offering to help. And sometimes it may just be for a conference, you may start out saying, can I help at the conference itself? Maybe it's nearby. And you go and have an initial role. You get to know other people that are helping run that conference. And then they see that you're a volunteer that's dedicated, and then asking for a next year a bigger role. Maybe can I be involved in helping plan an event at the conference? So there's ways to progress. And, that's one of the things that's hard for people sometimes is that um, they want to jump into a very high level role to start with. But volunteering is really something that you have to kind of establish yourself and work your way up to some of those bigger roles. And finding mentors is really about going to some of these events and meeting people and speaking with them about what you want to do. And I say going to events, but maybe it's meeting them online, meeting them through a WebEx. But there's a lot of ways to become involved in volunteering. You can go to the IEEE website and seek out opportunities. There's also multiple groups in IEEE that have a nominations and appointments process where positions are listed. They usually have a job description that you can read about, and then they have a portal where you can submit your nomination package. I will say if you go through that route, those are usually for longer term or higher level positions. But if you go through that route, make sure that in your nomination package, you are specifically addressing what you want to do in that position. Don't just go in there and put a generic, here's my skills and I want this position because I think it will help me. Talk about what you want to do in that position. Read about it ahead of time. Talk about what you want to do, what you want to achieve, what you can contribute, and that will help you get selected for those types of positions.
Great advice. Thank you. And thank you, Fatima, for the question. And hopefully you join us in IEEE as a volunteer one day. Looking forward to it. This next question, audience member asks, what's your advice on choosing careers and defining what you're actually looking for to solve problems to society?
Yeah, so that's a hard question. If you want to, if your focus is on making an impact and you want your career to be about making an impact, then find problems, issues in your community or in society as a whole, or through maybe some of the UN sustainability goals. Find what really intrigues you, what you think is a problem that you want to be involved in solving, and then use that to help you decide, okay, then what career do I need to have to be able to help with that? So I'm assuming at this point you know maybe haven't really fully decided what your career is going to be. Maybe you're partway through school and you haven't selected your major, or you have one you think you might want to change. But you can use that. How do you want to make an impact to decide, okay, what kind of career do I need to have then to help impact that specific problem?
Hope that answers your question. Thank you for and thank you for sending in your question. And also just want to thank you, send a big thanks to one of our audience members on LinkedIn, Crystal, who just sent in the links for the volunteer pages on IEEE, on the IEEE website. We've also included it on our other live streams on Facebook and YouTube as well. For anyone else who is interested in volunteering or joining IEEE. So, Jill, this next, I think this is our last question from our audience members. Fatima asked another question. So, what is the first step in identifying the right career path for yourself? And this might go kind of go hand in hand with the other question, but in case you have additional feedback.
Sure. Yes, it goes very much with that other one, and that. But there, I was really focusing on if you want to be impactful in addressing a problem, and that's how some people choose their career path. For other people, it's about what do you enjoy doing? What are you good at? And so, what do you want to learn more about? And so, that may be what drives your career path. For me, one of the things that happened to me when I was, I think, in kindergarten, I was given a gift of a third grade math workbook. I mean, who remembers something like that? I did because it to me said, "Oh, I'm doing pretty well at math. I'm doing good at math," and I loved that gift. And I still think back to that and how much it helped me find what I was really interested in, what I was skilled at, and where my path might eventually take me. So, maybe that's what you need to do is think about what you're good at and what you really enjoy doing. And don't fall into the mindset that once you decide what your career path is, that that's what it's got to be. It could be that you go through doing one thing and after, I don't know, 10 years, you decide, this isn't really for me. I really want to do something else. And you can change your career path. My husband actually is an engineer, worked on radar systems for 30 years. When he retired, he went back to school and got a master's degree in social work and is now a clinical therapist. So that was a long career, followed by, now one that's not going to be quite as long. But at any point, if you're constantly thinking about what what inspires you, what do you like doing, what do you want your career to be, what's the meaningfulness of the career to you, you may find that at some point you want to change your career path.
It's definitely great advice. Thank you. I'll definitely keep that in mind for myself too, and especially just because these days career paths are just so non-linear. As long there's so many skills that can translate to across different industries, different career skills.
Y-
So that advice is more important now than ever.
Yeah.
So thank you. This one question from our audience member: Do you like to, or do you provide PDU certificates for attendees? So to our audience member Kamal, please look forward to an email from us later on following the end of this live stream. It'll have details on how to get the PDAs for excuse me, PDUs for the webinars, as well as the feedback survey form for this webinar. So thank you for asking. So Jill, I'd like to just to wrap up this Q&A, I'd love to bring it back to IEEE and the opportunities it creates for leadership. You've talked about kind of like the first steps for anyone who wants to go into volunteering, shouldn't necessarily go into leadership as a first, first opportunity thing. But for those who have, gone through the steps and become volunteered for a little while, and want to go those next steps after that, stepping into a first leadership role can feel intimidating, especially in a large organization like IEEE. So I guess my question I like to ask is, what advice would you give to members considering their first IEEE leadership opportunity?
Same advice I'd give you for your career. Be prepared. So do as much online searching, talking with other people who have been on whatever committee or group you're going to be involved in to find out what the role is really like and to think through what that group is trying to achieve. And just make sure you're aware of what you're stepping into, what the requirements are, how much time is involved, and then take the time to really be involved. A lot of people participate on a committee and they just join the committee. They don't do anything outside of the committee, or they don't contribute. Maybe they make a few comments, but get involved. Find ways to say, to volunteer to do something additional, to be part of a team that's working on one particular area that the committee wants to focus on, or the committee, or whatever the group is. So learn about it ahead of time. Maybe even identify a mentor from those people that you're learning about it, and then really dedicate some time to it, and put some time and effort into it.
That's great. Thank you. And for folks, for clarification, Jill is the 2026 IEEE president-elect, so I think she has a very good grasp on how to go about taking those steps to becoming a leader in any role. So, Jill, thank you so much. To everyone, that's all the time we have for today. So thank you so much for joining us and for sharing your valuable insights. You've been fantastic to have.
Thank you for the opportunity. I always enjoy being here. Thank you.
And thank you to our audience for tuning in and for your great questions as well. A few announcements before we close things off today. First, we are now taking submissions for the 2026 IEEE-USA Awards cycle. Every year, the IEEE-USA Awards are given to recognize professionalism, technical achievement, and literary contributions to public awareness and understanding of the engineering profession in the United States. You can find the details on each award, eligibility, and the nomination process on our website. Next up, big things are happening in Dayton, Ohio this June. IEEE-USA will be hosting our iWork Digital Twin Summit, which will bring industry, government, and academic leaders together to explore the future of digital twin technologies and the federal initiatives driving innovation across the Midwest. In conjunction with iWork, IEEE Entrepreneurship will host its Entrepreneurship 101 workshop, offering hands-on guidance for innovators looking to turn ideas into impact. Learn more and get ready to join us. Finally, registration is now open for IEEE-USA's inaugural Big Thinkers Conference. This event is set to bring together top innovators and leaders from across industries to help early and mid-career professionals accelerate their growth and elevate their leadership skills. Don't miss your chance to be part of this first-of-its-kind event. If you enjoyed the content presented in today's webinar, please be sure to check out our extensive catalog of other presentations and publications available on demand on our website for your viewing pleasure. And finally, if you haven't yet, please be sure to like and subscribe to our IEEE-USA social media channels. And don't forget to check back daily for updates on upcoming events. Have a great day, everyone.
AI is changing our world at a tremendous pace. We need to be prepared for these changes. We need to understand how AI is affecting our lives, our societies, and even our psychology. I believe that this is the most important work in the world right now. IEEE is bringing people together from all around the world to work on some of the world's most difficult problems. IEEE is my competitive edge.